Day one of the Julio Foolio trial, and Young and Ace's name has been mentioned multiple times already, and we're just now in the opening arguments. Now, so far, the prosecutors have concluded their opening statements where they basically gave a rundown of what they say allegedly happened to Julio Foolio leading up to his death. Now, Julio Foolio, whose real name is Charles Jones, had left Jacksonville, Florida to head to Tampa, Florida to celebrate his birthday, where he had some performances lined up. They are alleging that these four guys, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gaithright, Davion Murphy, and Rashad Murphy, who are all facing a death penalty, followed him from Jacksonville to Tampa to hunt him down. Now, they're giving us a full rundown of the ongoing beef that was going on back in Jacksonville, the multiple gangs that were involved, who was on whose side. They basically said that ATK and 1200 were like partner gangs or something. They were all working together, and that Julio Foolio was on the opposite side with 6 Block. They started to talk about the rap beef, and they called it drill music, where they started to introduce songs like Who I Smoke, Game Over, Foolio Dead, which all came from the ATK and 1200 side, according to them. And they also played the song When I See You by Julio Foolio, labeling it as a 6 Block song. And this song kind of described the death of Young and Ace's brother. They also gave a timeline of the war going on back in Jacksonville. They gave the person's name, what group they were allegedly associated with, the date that it happened. They even showed the people that were targeted that survived these hits. They showed communications between the guys. They showed surveillance video showing them arriving to Tampa, going to the Airbnb. They saw them loading up the cars, leaving Jacksonville. You could also see where they were on like a Spaces conversation where multiple people from different sides were on there, and they were kind of like taunting each other. Y'all, right now we're going to see a lot of the same stuff we saw with the Alicia Andrews case, but they're going to go a little bit more into detail because these are the people that they're saying were in the ski mask that actually took out this hit. They explained who was in Tampa on both sides, on the side of the guys who are on trial right now, as well as the people that were there with Julio Foolio to celebrate his birthday. Every person that was in each car, even the car behind Julio Foolio. They mentioned the kind of weapons that were used, the catchers that were on some of the weapons that were used, saying that that is the reason why they didn't get as much evidence as they could have gotten. They're also trying to tie the evidence that they did get to some of the other crime scenes that happened back in Jacksonville. Now, they did show footage of Davion Murphy posing after he was finally caught, as well as him walking around the interrogation room like he had an assault weapon in his hand and pointing it, acting like he was using it. Now, they also brought up the fact that Sean Gaithright was not mentioned as being in a gang, that they did not charge him with that, and that is something that they will go into a little bit further. Now, each defendant for the Julio Foolio case had an attorney to go up to do opening statements for them. The first attorney was for Isaiah Chance. Now, he stated, listen, the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. Don't try to connect the dots. Don't try to figure this out on your own. Make them prove it to you. They're going to want y'all to make some assumptions, but don't assume anything. He pointed out the fact that the Airbnb had been booked for days, and that Julio Foolio's room at the Home to Suites had just been booked right before his death. He also pointed out the fact that the unalivers were watching Julio Foolio from the last club that he was at, and they made it to the hotel before Isaiah Chance's car allegedly made it there. Now, he also pointed out the fact that they cannot prove who was driving the car that Isaiah Chance was in. They can't prove if it was him driving it or if it was Alicia driving it. Just like they can't prove who was actually sending out those text messages. They only saw Isaiah Chance using Alicia's phone one time. So they said, do not assume that every time that phone went off that it was Isaiah Chance on that phone, because it could have been Alicia Andrews, and it's going to be up to the prosecutors to prove it. Now, Sean Gaithright's attorney got up, and he pointed out the fact that he is not labeled as being in a gang, that he was not involved with the music or music videos or taunting people with songs. He also pointed out that they did find a weapon in a car with Sean Gaithright, which was a 9, and he states that there were 31 casings found in Tampa that came from a 9. However, none of them were a match. Now, Rashad Murphy's attorney got up and said, pay attention to the evidence that's presented, especially the stuff that does not match up and does not make any sense. He said, make sure you look at my client as an individual and do not find him guilty of things that you feel like other people did just because he is associated with them. Davion Murphy's attorney got up and said, just because the prosecutors talked for 3 hours don't mean that they were up here telling the truth, and don't mean y'all should be considering that as evidence. He also talked about the fact that Davion was not actually tracked at the Home to Suites at the time of Julio Foolio's unaliving, and then he addressed the whole thing of the video of him in the interrogation room dancing around and using the gestures like he had a weapon in his hand. He said that David Young was drunk and they had music playing and he was reacting to the music. Now, a sergeant, 3 officers, and 1 detective did take the stand. The sergeant talked about how they were made aware that Julio Foolio was going to be in the area, but he did not know that Julio Foolio had been at Truth 18. He stated that he got the call saying that there had been a shooting at the Home to Suites, and he was headed there when he saw the silver Hyundai kind of go over a curb. So he got behind that vehicle, thinking that that vehicle was probably involved. And once he got behind it, a girl jumped out at some other people saying that their friend had been shot. Now, when he got to the hotel, he did realize that Julio Foolio was dead. He began to follow a trail of blood inside of the hotel, and they ended up finding some more victims on the 3rd floor. Now, most of the other officers who testified talked about the shell cases that were found, the trails of blood, trying to question witnesses, most who were being uncooperative, and just the things that were going on the scene, trying to set up the perimeter, getting everything taped off. Now, a detective did take the stand, and they showed some pictures where they were looking at like the damages to cars, the damages to some of the hotel windows, and it kind of stopped right there. Once I have more information regarding any of this, I will let you all know.